doing it. You supposed to be happy you sitting there with Kid L. Why you mad?
The Kid L podcast.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Rocking and rolling. Reyes is in the building, and my dog brought looks like some tequila for me, man.
Herradura tequila. That's the new
Herradura Blanco. Jesus, man. I appreciate you bringing this on board.
Like in our culture, right? When you show up, you bring a gift. So
what's your background?
So I'm Mexican. Right?
Oh, you are
Chicano,
Mexican?
Yeah, Mexicano, Chicano. Yeah.
You look a little like light skinned-ish.
Yeah, I guess it depends what you think a Mexican is, bro. Like, what are you gonna do? Are you like how much you gonna get trapped? Like, do you think a Mexican looks like what? Don't answer.
George Lopez.
But, yeah, exactly. Right. Like, yeah. So I think like the diversity of our culture, a lot of the background gets mixed too, right? So,
man, you just stoked me up for this right here, dude.
Oh, we can pop it, bro. Let's
make it happen, son.
Yeah.
So is this like a local brand or is this
so Herradura is based out of Jalisco, and they support a lot of the arts, and they're one of the folks that support our work.
Am I dumb, bro, or am I an idiot?
There you go.
Wait, how does this happen?
I think it's just to protect it from overpouring. There you go. Yeah, so Herradura, we just got back from their hacienda, and we did a whole visit. Worked with a bunch of folks from across the country, which was pretty cool. And yeah, it was good. So like they're basically, they were family run, and they're a part of the Brown Foreman family. So they've supported us, and we have like Cinco de Mayo celebration, Day of the Dead, and they really are able to support our work. And so, they gave me some gifts to give out every time.
How'd they hear about you to be like want to be involved in sponsoring?
Yeah, so I think like just on the level of producing, salud, by the way.
Salud, man.
Just on the level of producing events, I think I get a lot of questions around like sponsorship, because we do have a number of brands that work with our collective, which is We Are Culture Creators. A lot of it is just showing up to spaces and connecting with people and building community. So I think like Herradura, Jack Daniels, whether it's like Red Bull, we work with like the Hollywood Casino in Greektown. A lot of it was showing up to space, meeting the people that coordinate it, kind of showing the work. Like our work, we believe in it. I believe in it. And so it's also a matter of kind of like, connecting. We work with the Detroit Pistons from time to time.
Very cool.
And it's just like being consistent and being in those spaces and asking questions, like just being humble enough to be like, hey, who runs tonight? And a lot of times, 9 times out of 10, you'll find out who runs the night.
Well, you notice with sponsorships, right? It's very difficult to get sponsorships no matter what you're doing. And so they have to find value in a return on investment.
Yeah.
So they're usually looking for a return on investment. They might take one shot at you and be like, okay, let's see what you can get back to us. So them being consistent means that they're seeing a really good return on investment to keep promoting, or they're just doing it for the culture itself.
Well, I think like it's a mix, right? In one way, I think I asked them, when you work with a brand, I ask them, there's 2 ways to get to $1 million, right? Do you want a painting? You can sell it for $1 million, or you can do 10,000 prints and get to $1 million. So a brand might say, well, we want the painting. That gives me a better idea of how to curate the experience that they want. Some brands just want to move volume, right? So they might just be like, we just want 10,000 prints, which means they want to move like whatever their product is, whether it's cannabis or some of the other work that we do. So I think like the value a lot of times is just getting like Detroit's broken up into different spaces. So you have like the street culture, which is there, which I'm a part of a collective that runs Backwoods and Bonfires. I'm one of the co-owners of that festival. So there we have a little bit more like rap, hip hop. And then you also have like the art scene, which is a little bit more underground. And so like there's a term we use called the scene, which is if you're in the scene, you kind of know there's no membership. There's no way to join. It's just like you're a part of the art scene in Detroit. Right. And so that current of the art scene is there in Detroit. And a lot of brands, are trying to connect with it. For us, it's more important that we still have control of the vision of what we feel we want our work to be. And Herradura, Jack Daniels, those 2 brands in particular really allowed us to kind of just create. So, from that, we have a series called Audio Jack, which features DJs that we do at the Hollywood Casino. And it's just really featuring DJs with their friends in a room and vibing. And then, I think as part of the cultural work that we do, we also, have a parallel 501c3 nonprofit, which is really where the grassroots community work happens. And so they feed each other. Cool. So as a young person might age out, right? They might turn, 25 because we work between 18 to 24-year-olds. When we're more doing the festival activations like 21 and up, so 21 to 24. When they age out and become 25, we still want to work with people and connect. And so that's where like those phrases of like a nonprofit and a LLC, we just have to make sure legally we're keeping them tight and separate budgets, but they do feed each other in the sense that a young person can come through We Are Culture Creators and then end up helping at Backwoods and Bonfires or doing their own projects. We have a number of young people, like there's a collective that does called Nonstop Hip Hop, and they're just doing hip hop cypher shows, events, and those young folks, some of them were in our program. So it's important to see them grow, right? Not as competition. It's the same thing working with Crowd Freak, another one of the orgs that runs, one of the companies that run Backwoods. Instead of seeing each other as competition, we saw that we could collaborate.
Yes.
And that's really where that piece is for culture creators, is collaboration.
I always give a shout out to Curtis Lamar when you talk about Backwoods and Bonfires and Crowd Freak and Henny and Hamburgers and everything that they put together, because at the end of the day, it's really a collective of artists and entertainers and people in the behind the scenes and the underground working together in a collaborative effort to showcase each other's talents and to keep the scene moving forward. I do want to get down to my dogs' early years, day zero from you in Saginaw, man. What was life like for growing up for you in Saginaw?
Man, I grew up in the 90s. So, I left in 98 and I got back to Detroit, back to Michigan, because I was gone. I lived in Chicago, lived in New York, lived overseas. But Saginaw at that time, there's a few things you were really known for. One is basketball, right? You have Jason Richardson from Saginaw, Draymond Green's from Saginaw, Mark Macon, shout out to BV, like if you're a little bit older. There's also a lot of athletes like Sam Sword, Lamar Woodley. So sports is definitely like a lane that people go into. I knew very early, like maybe sixth grade, that I was seventh grade, that I wasn't going to really be in the sports lane because, by seventh grade, some of my friends were dunking on like 10-foot rims, right? Wow. So, I went to high school with Jason Richardson. He was a grade younger than me. But there was another person named DeAndre Hewlett who I grew up with who didn't make it to the league, but was one of those guys that had like a foot growth spurt and came back and was dunking in like seventh grade. So art became my outlet. And
you didn't try hooping out for a second?
No, I still ball. I still hoop. But I knew that, okay, what am I going to spend my time on? Am I going to spend my time on something where there's no real future, right? Like, I mean, again, early on, sometimes you could be like one of those guys that really train hard and maybe go to college. I looked at myself and was like, I'll play high school, I'll play middle school. But the next level is such a difficult jump. Like, even in football, playing against guys from Flint, I played against Charles Rogers, and I think he was a grade ahead of me. And bro, just the difference in speed.
You just knew it was over.
Yeah, I mean, like it was fun, but art became my outlet, culture.
Yes.
So I was a part of a group called La Diferencia, which was like, it took all the Latino clubs in our city, which was probably about 6 or 7 high schools, because Saginaw is not very big, but it combined all those clubs. And that was before we knew anything about nonprofits or grants. This is like, in the late 90s, and pretty much put us all together to do like television shows and videos. And I think we had like some educational stuff, but those formative years of understanding film, video, editing, writing, and the creative side all was born from Saginaw. At a certain point though, like graduating college really wasn't something I felt like I could do or wanted to do. So I just got into really trying to figure out, video and audio and volunteering for stuff. And eventually I made my way to Chicago, and really in Chicago, as a poet, I started to establish myself as an artist. And I spent 13 years there working on campaigns for political prisoners, working with the Puerto Rican independence movement, working on immigration reform, working on a lot of work in Humboldt Park where they were experiencing like gentrification. So there's a lot of layers to that work.
Right now we're seeing a lot of political prisoner things happening right now.
Well, I mean,
like, who is the most notable media press for a person that was a political prisoner?
Well, I think Mumia Abu-Jamal would be a big one because he's a former Black Panther that's still incarcerated. Leonard Peltier was a Native American political prisoner that just came home recently.
The Black Panther member, what was the situation behind it?
So they accused him of shooting a police officer in Philadelphia. And if you just Google Mumia Abu-Jamal, you'll see, like, it comes out of the same movement. You might have heard of, like, Afeni Shakur.
Yes.
They're a different group, a different time, but in the same kind of, like, scope of them being accused of violence during the late 60s, 70s. Mumia is a little bit later, but I think the term political prisoner isn't a term that like the U.S. government legally uses. So generally, if you look them up, they try folks for crimes.
Right.
Me in particular, I was working with the Puerto Rican group that was incarcerated in the 80s, and that group was basically blanketed, and there was 15 total. After everything was said and done, there was 14 total. After everything was said and done, they were able to get them all home, right?
Oh, cool.
And so, but that was like a 35 to 37 year battle.
Jesus.
I didn't come on until like the early 2000s, but I worked on campaigns, traveled, wrote plays for them, poetry, videos, just to popularize their name. In the same way, if you listen to rap, you might hear a song by Common Sense that talks about Afeni Shakur, Asada Shakur, who's in Cuba right now as a political entity, right? And the U.S. government is still looking for her. So he wrote about Asada. So a lot of hip hop artists leaned into that, and it's important. I think for me in art, I always was a we poet, not a me poet. So I did more reflection about cultural movements, political movements, social justice, and a lot of that skill translated into a certain point where I wanted to help facilitate with other young people. And so I founded a nonprofit, which wasn't intentional. It just kind of happened in the sense that we were doing all this work. And out of that work, there's a bunch of artists that we worked with, from Curtis Rhodes to Damasio to Be Free to an endless list of artists that when we first started, culture creators in like 2013, these were like 15, 16-year-olds, right?
Yeah.
Now they're in the industry, they're out doing stuff. And so the translation between political work and cultural work to me was, I felt like I wanted to contribute in a different way, in a positive way, but still we're in this new era of music and art. So how do young people, or how are they able to take their art and buy a home in Detroit? How are these young Black creatives and Latino and brown creatives able to do their work and not have to just go to LA or New York and outsource their talent? Really, for here, it's a lot of times LA, right? We all know, like, oh, you go to LA. But how can a young person buy a home and have a quality of life in Detroit that they're not going to get in other places? And so that's one key element to our work is, whenever you work with culture creators, a young person should have a parallel project they're working on, which is theirs. Because in the nonprofit world, you can spend 10 years from 20 to 30 and you come out, you don't have anything. So a young person has to have like another collective or a company or an LLC or just something they're working on so that they can spend time learning with us, but then have something that's theirs when they leave. And so there's probably like 7 or 8 collectives that have come out of that work.
Yo, it's your boy Kid L. If you're an artist, entertainer, or have a brand that needs more motion, then check out the Artist X strategy. You can receive one-on-one coaching with real entertainment and business moguls. They'll help you navigate through the hurricane of the entertainment industry. You can also receive music and social media analysis. Through algorithm checks, we can help you identify and fix your weaknesses. Networking opportunities are also available. Message Kid L Video on Instagram for more info.
When you guys established this idea, what was the first task that you did? What was the first way of implementing artists inside the system?
Well, I mean, I think like it's just providing for need, bro. Like a lot of times we think we got to have the perfect building. And I'm sure you as an entrepreneur maybe have thought through this process, or all the people you've interviewed, you think it has to be the perfect look, the perfect space. We started in a house,
right,
in a living room with a backyard. The backyard was our sanctuary. That was our church. And for 4 years, we were just doing events. We were in our own universe. We didn't know that there was sponsorship opportunities. We didn't know that there was other real collectives. We knew they were out there, but we weren't working. So almost 3 years, I would say in a row, our backyard became like a venue because all the young people were too young to go to any venue in the city. And if you're here, let's say 11, 12 years ago, there was also a lot less space to perform.
Yes.
And if you're young, a lot of times, and if you're young and Black in particular, you're locked out of downtown. Like you're not getting a look to maybe book a downtown space. So we just didn't know that all these pockets existed. So the first thing we did was just provide basic needs. Have some meals together. We can cook big pots of food. Have a access that's 24 hours. You can come in anytime. The studio was open. We have a basement studio. There's community. That's a big thing. Like this big conversation right now is third spaces. Like, how do we get a third space? Where's a third space? That just means a space where you go outside of your home and work where you have community, right? Sometimes it's a local bar, cafe. So our house was third space. So I think that first initial, we were just ignorant, you know, in a positive way. And it was good for us to be ignorant, because had we known, maybe we would have been intimidated. Maybe we would have been unsure. Maybe we would have been waiting for it to be perfect. And you don't have to, you just start. And so we just really started with a need. There was a bunch of young people that were super talented, that needed a studio, that needed a place to gather, and needed a venue. And so our house became that, right? And so my business partner, Elizabeth Stone, was the other person who founded We Are Culture Creators. I always got to shout her out. Black woman from Detroit, grew up in Detroit, spent her whole life here, and just wanted, the same way I wanted to, just was having open space. We really kind of wanted to manage artists, and that really wasn't working the way we wanted it to work. Me coming off of 13 years as an artist, traveling and touring the world as a poet, going to colleges and institutions, I just wanted to help some other young folks, and it just didn't work, and that was fine, because you fail a lot, and it failed. But out of that, I ended up becoming having a partnership with an artist named Demasio, who's a rapper that I manage, but he's much more than that, visual artist, painter, and we just dropped a record. We just dropped like an actual vinyl version of his project, and I think that was the seeds back in the day. Was like literally just like this, 2 mics and a couch. Right. You got some cameras, boom, you put it out. So I think when we first started, we also were shooting a lot of video. And then, you know, we worked with Diego Cruz, and you start just building your community. And someone like Diego, who's pretty established and has shot for, I can always call him and be like, hey, we got a young person that needs some help. Are you down to shoot? And he's always down to show up and help and figure it out, whether he's shooting or one of our young folks is shooting and he's helping. That's the type of community that I think, you know, we want to build in Detroit. We just had a conversation with Vezo.
Yeah, I seen that.
Yeah, he was really doing a project with Red Bull, and I don't know him very well, but what I do know of him and the times I've interacted with him, which is more than a handful of times, he's always been super supportive of our work, of the vision, and sees value in it, whether that's Backwoods and Bonfires or it's Culture Creators. And I think that's the type of city we want, right? Like we want the city that's like supporting, because even though you got that street layer, you have the antithesis to that, right? You have the other side, which is the younger wavy kids that are creating weird art that might be a little bit different than what mainstream art is, but they're really creating what the next thing is, right?
Right, for sure.
And so you have kids all over Detroit doing that, like all over. So like my new role is the Global Underground Ambassador with Visit Detroit. And that was just announced last week. Visit Detroit is kind of like our tourism page for Detroit. And so I had been working with them for about 2.5 years. We went to Burnley in the UK, just north of Manchester, and went to a football game, you know, depending on where you're from. You know, we've done some tours. We worked in Paris, London, Berlin. We have a partnership with Gangways Berlin, which is a group that, you know, works in Germany. And we're thinking we're going to see like what you think a stereotypical German community is, right? Which is blonde hair, blue eyes. And we see all these like black and brown, like Germans, right? So there's these pockets that we go to in each community where we're just trying to build that positive community. And one of the exports from Detroit that a lot of the artists create is culture, right? That's like one of Detroit's, we say Motor City, but really it's art, home of techno. Right. If you study like you have Chicago and Detroit with house, you have Motown, of course. For sure. You have punk music. The rhythms are based here with a band that's in Detroit. That's a black band. So that cultural element, when we travel and we go, we just got back from Mexico City. Same thing, right? Like the export of Detroit culture, which is really black culture, right? And then as somebody who's Latino and just feels really appreciative of being allowed to be in those spaces and share in those spaces and build in solidarity, I think like for us as the artists we work with and create with, that's what we're trying to build, those bridges, because we want people to not come here as tourists, but come here as world travelers and be able to experience Detroit the way we experience Detroit.
Your Excel sheets must be insane because the infrastructure and the organization has to be phenomenal for these things to work.
Oh, man, I don't know, man. Sometimes I wish, like I'm still an artist, right? So it definitely takes like support and mechanisms to support a lot of times.
Well, it has to, because you're talking about pockets, and pockets can only be organized because you're dealing with so many different areas and venues that you have to have a immense amount of organization.
No, for sure. Like one tip for anybody that's young creating is like a P&L sheet. just keeps you like, which is like a profit and loss and kind of keeps you organized. But definitely that's a skill I had to learn. You know, I still miss deadlines. I still miss opportunities because I'm not organized. I miss contract emails. Way less now in the last maybe 4 years, but just kind of resisting to like wanting to be that more like raw artist. But that's, for instance, is like having good partners, right? So let's say Backwoods and Bonfires, I'm one of the co-owners, but I help design and I do like a lot of the build out, but our partners in that space all kind of fill a pocket. So I'm not looking at necessarily the P&L every day in the sense of like having to really fully budget because we have somebody that kind of, that's their skill set.
So you're hiring people to fill up the gaps where you can't take control.
It's either hiring or partnering, right? Because if you can't hire, then you partner, right?
Yeah.
Because if you don't have the capital to be like, hey, I can pay you your value at this wage, then the other way is like, hey, let's split with your skill set. How can you be a partner and we all make money together?
And the only reason I talk about the background technicalities and logistics of everything is because when people see these ideas, they're almost like, well, I want to go try to do that, but the infrastructure does matter. That having things organized matters. So
it does.
I don't want people like listening and going like, well, I'm just going to go do that without them knowing, like, you know, you have to actually know what you're doing to do what you're doing at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's layers, right? So in one level, I'll have a young person come up with an idea and they'll tell me and I'll be like, in my natural instinct as like the unk, I'm like, oh, we already tried that and it failed, right? But I always tell a young person, but don't listen to me because maybe I'm missing something. Maybe there's a skill set I'm missing. Maybe I'm not as passionate. Maybe I just didn't catch it at the right time. So there is a thing about consistency. Like for us, let's say just on the business side, there's multiple customers, right? So we do an event because we do about 100 events. We have another series called Fiesta House, which is like Latin house music. So with some of the holidays coming up, like Cinco de Mayo, and, you know, we got Movement coming up. We got Day of the Dead further down the line. It takes a lot of work to consistently do those events.
Right.
But I didn't get it, right? Like I had a younger person, and that's my business partner, Southwest EJ. And EJ was like, hey, we have to do Latin house stuff. And I didn't get it, bro, because I wasn't in touch, right? I'm like, I don't think it's gonna work. It took me going to South by Southwest, and there's a group out there called Peligrosa. They did a really phenomenal show and it clicked. My brain was like, okay, I get it. So like having said that is like, yes, that organization is very important, but at the same time, to get those first ones out, sometimes you just have to do it. Now, there's a difference between doing it as a hobby and doing it as a career, right?
Right, and that's why I brought it up, because initially something you said was figuring out how to get these artists to make an income or to make some type of, having something on the side to make sure that there's money coming in. So by the time your career might be dwindling, you have money or you have security.
But you also will know, right? Like, so even a day job, bro, I'm not at all against artists having day jobs. I think we're told like right away that, oh, if you're really into it, you're going to go 100%, because you hear that narrative, bro, but that's like 1 in a million. I do think there's something to having stability to be able to pay for, let's say, just ads, right? Videos,
right?
Content. If you can't shoot your own content, somebody has to shoot it. You have to have a budget for it. You have to pay someone. So I think what I was always told is you'll know when you can stop working, because you'll see that you're going to start leaning towards where the other income is, which is your entrepreneurship.
For sure.
Right?
Because after a while, it's going to be like, wait, I'm making so much money doing music right now. I don't have time to go to the 9 to 5 right now. So then you can let go of it. But leaving the 9 to 5 to fully focus on music, like you said, is a 1 in a million strike odds.
Yeah, and
really
I think
difficult.
also the like we always make the joke that you're avoiding 40 hours, so you have to work 70 hours, right? But it's my 70 hours.
Yeah,
so right, but it is like work, right? Like we're in the middle of a big festival this week, and after I do a few podcasts and I'm going to do my visits, I'm going to go to the office that we have and we're going to work because we need to catch up, right?
Yeah.
And that's going to be like 6-7 hours of just literal flyers, emails, texts, whatever it is that we're doing, budgeting.
So when you're implementing yourself into all these events, because you're saying you're doing over 100 a year, about 100 events
about
a year?
100, yeah. If
We're
we
talking about
average it out.
or is it globally?
It's mixed. We say the 100 is mixed. So there's some that are in Paris. So for instance, we just got back from Mexico City and Guadalajara, Mexico.
Yeah.
Hedaduda had brought us out to do some content. And so we did that for 3 days. But then we also did our own kind of sets 4 other shows.
So how are you implementing yourself? Because it seems like all these events and coordinators and promoters are knowing that you're a tool for them, or you're a tool for other people, or you're the part of the entire process.
Yeah.
Where do you mainly fit when you're a part of these events?
It just depends, right? So like as a poet, obviously then I'll be more of a centerpiece because I'm be an artist, but that's rare in most of the events. I have my own brand, Reyes Poetry, which I kind of focus my art through that. With culture creators and these other events, I approach it more as a curator.
Cool.
And the curator really just is creating the environment, right? So it's not enough. I mean, you're in music, right? You could have the best headliner in the city, but if you don't curate the environment, have the right venue, have the right space, the right flyer is the first thing, right? That's communicating to you. If you don't have those things in line, then, you can lose or gain off of like what that event is going to be. So as a curator, it really can depend, right? I can partner with a hotel. They may already have a full structure of what they want, and they might just want me to help them pick a DJ, help them put the flyer out. They have a brand that they want the flyer to look like. In other spaces, which are more like our independent stuff, we're building from scratch, but we've already built enough into our brand. So I'll just use Fiesta House as a series. We double down on this Loteria card, which is like a Mexican lottery card, like for bingo. And that card has a certain style. And so we use that image for, let's say, 60 events. And it's all going to look very similar, but it'll have different elements. So you kind of start having brand recognition. Now, the new thing right now is like experiential marketing, right? So we get hired in to create an experience for a brand. A brand may want certain elements, so we then will bring those together. And because we have an established kind of relationship with over 300 artists in the city, because I was brought in to bring Vezo to an event once, right? And it wasn't my money. They gave me a budget and they said, hey, this is what we want. And I was like, well, it's going to be X amount of dollars for a song or 2. If y'all want to pay that, they're like, yeah, go ahead. But it wasn't my money, right? I'm just facilitating. So then I'm calling the manager and saying, hey, this is what we got. Cool, right? It's a great day for him. Other brands may be like, we need everything, right? We have this empty room and we want to do something with it. Can you help us?
So for them, it's like, how much of the role can you fill? And for them, they could say, we need you to do 100% or we need you to do 10% of what
Yeah, and it just depends because you might have a more established brand that is like, hey, we already know our vision, our look, our fonts. We know how we want the room. We really just want you to get the right vibe with the DJ. Can you help us find a DJ?
Very cool.
Or can you help us find the right, there's an artist right now that I know named Mirage, and she plays violin and she does like Selena styled music, which is a really specific thing. But if I bring that into a room, people are going to be amazed by it because they've never seen it. Or you may have like a known rapper that we have a relationship with that we know we can get, and it's a cool project. We kind of know when it's something people will want to do and not do, because you also don't want to bug, right? And be like, oh, there's something I know they're not really going to be interested in. So with certain brands, like I'll give you one example for like the Hollywood Casino in Greektown. They just wanted to show off their rooms. And so we just helped them get 24 influencers. We went to a concert. We went to a Bad Bunny show. They gave us a suite. They gave us all rooms, but we needed to create content to show the experience we had, like a genuine experience. That led to us then being able to build with them and do our own series. They have like a suite up on the 27th floor. We shot a podcast up there for them for South by Southwest. We've done like DJ series up there. It's just to keep the room active. And that's more so hands off, right? With the Detroit Pistons, they've brought us on to do block parties. We've done stuff with them overseas. And that's a real partnership, right? With them, they've supported our work in our community too, right? So it may not be just a monetary thing for them. It might be like, hey, we just really want to support your work in Southwest Detroit or wherever we're at the moment.
You notice too with the Pistons, they're really getting in touch with the culture. They're always having major artists from the city on their shows.
Yeah, and that started, I think, like a few years ago with one of our guys over there. AJ does a great job. One of our brothers, one of our other brothers, Bilal, who filled the role and has been there, I think now almost 2 years maybe. But they're very intentional as a brand to understand like, yo, they're in Detroit. So historically, if you think about it, like the Palace or some of these other spaces that were a little further out. And I think with the sports teams, I'm talking about all over the country, Pistons were highlighted as one of the cities that gets it. and it's incorporating like what is the youth culture, like what are the people in the city vibing to, are they, because you know you could get into where it's just like rock music, which is not necessarily a bad thing, right? I mean, rock music at its foundation is still black music, but like who experiences that music now, and you could kind of be stuck. And I think the Pistons do a really good job of not only creating like the rappers that are there, but there's a lot of community folks there, like consistently, right, that are doing stuff in the culture that you really wouldn't know, like who runs Shinola's Activations, right, which is like a brand in the city. Who runs those folks are there. They're all in, like, I mean, I see them, right? Who's a visual artist that might, you know, be doing a mural. So they do a really good job, I think, of connecting with the culture, which, you know, serves them well because then they have the support. When the team wasn't doing very well and now the team is in the playoffs, you can see like it didn't really matter, right? Like it's had people there, people supporting, the culture was supporting it. And you know, like the saying, bro, rappers want to be ball players want to be rappers, bro. Like that's always, like basketball is in transit with that cultural element because it's one of the first sports that embrace rap, right?
Absolutely.
So that interchange of like rapper, ball player, culture, and like if you think about music and the rhythm, like, I mean, I play basketball. You always put music on, right? When you're hooping. You know, you might put a headset in when you're working out. So the idea of music and sports is always like a really, really tight connection. And then basketball and hip hop has always had some type of relationship.
Especially because the scene's hot right now in Detroit. Right?
Oh, yeah, so, for sure, bro. Like Detroit is bubbling, right? And it has been for a bit. So,
you got to work with some major industry people, including John Legend, man. Can you talk about how that came together?
Yeah, like I think, for me, I've worked with a few artists that are pretty established. With the John Legend project, that was through a foundation. The Kellogg Foundation brought me on board, and they were doing these projects where they were pairing poets and more established like artists. So obviously, like I was the less established artist as like a poet and like in my own scene. And we did a cover, a Nina Simone cover, and that came out on a series that was all about social equity, kind of like anti-racism, social justice. And so we just worked on that project. I sent it back and forth. But to me, like the reason I would bring that up is just that as a poet, we kind of create our own lanes. Like one of my mentors from New York, his name was Tato Laviera. And, you know, he would tell me, you know, you got singers and musicians, and then you got poets like at the bottom, right? And it was a joke, but he was being true, right? In the sense of like where art is. Like poetry, you're just up there by yourself, right? It's almost like stand-up. That's why like I tried stand-up once because I thought I could do it, right? Somebody saw me and I'm pretty funny on my set. But being a comedian and you know, being funny is two different things, right?
Facts.
So I went in and I just flipped to doing poems, bro. I just ended up doing a poetry set. It didn't matter. They were happy with it, but I give credit to some of my friends that are stand-up comics. But like those bigger kind of projects really just stem from poetry.
Was John Legend the biggest artist you've ever worked with?
I worked with the old Kanye on a commercial. So like,
really, what was the commercial?
It was like an educational thing in Chicago. And they used our youth center, and we kind of mixed in, and we did like this whole educational piece about, you know, young people in Chicago and,
Very cool.
You know, breaking down. So we were with him for almost like 9 hours. And I think, you know, with Kanye, bro, it's just some mental health things. I think I really do, bro. I think like the stigma around mental health in our community, like somebody, I think in that sense really does need to step in. And it's hard because like I have family members that have suffered from.
I would do the same shit
mental
though
health.
if I was Kanye West though.
Yeah, I don't really think it's that intentional, bro. I really do think that there is, I mean, at that level of genius,
You think?
there are some, yeah, for sure, bro. You can see he's spiraling, bro. You can just look in a person's eyes,
Yeah,
and you
you're
can
right,
see
you're
like,
right.
I mean,
Yeah,
like,
you're right.
I mean, I think it's fun and games, right? Like you can make fun of him and those sort of things, but I think all of us in our communities know family members that are different, whether it's meds or treatment. I've seen it with my own eyes. Somebody I know that was spiraling, and then they're different, right? But
We've been there too, though. I'm sure you've been at the crash out times, and I've been at crash out moments in my life. There was a point where I was hopped off on like mushrooms, Vicodin, and drinking all at the same time.
that doesn't sound healthy.
It was the worst days of my life, but I was a different man, and I lost a lot of friends through that entire experience. But when I got back, they were like, "Okay, you're back now." So I'm sure you're right with Kanye. He's just fucking so far.
Yeah,
gone.
and I think also celebrity, bro. Like I feel like at that level of celebrity, like again, I don't know him, right? I interacted with him for a day. But I would imagine that just no one's going to tell you no, right? You're going to surround yourself around people that really just kind of let you be you, or drink the Kool-Aid and are like, well, you're a genius, so we're just going to go with you. And it's hard, bro. You lost his mom. There's all these levels. So I think like in anything, any celebrity space, it's like intensified.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean like you don't take responsibility for what you say and what you're doing. And there's all those kind of elements too. Because I don't think you can just be like abusing people and then blame like, oh, you know, it's my mental health.
For sure.
Because there's still a level of responsibility. And I know like we're having like a little bit deeper conversation right now, but I work with young folks and I've seen both spectrums. I've seen when a young person spirals and when they're not themselves, and I've seen them when they're settled. It's the same person.
Yeah.
But I think that's a real conversation in our communities. And I could just use my community as a Latino community, bro. We ain't talk about mental health. Like growing up, you just like toughen up and just do what you do. You don't talk about how you feel and if you're depressed and if you're not feeling good. And, you know, you say like J Electronica trying to find meaning in the bottle of a Corona. Like, that's the truth, bro. Alcohol, substances, we're trying to find purpose. But again, having said that, I think those folks that have that foundation around them, and you can't help everybody, bro. So he might, you know, be in a position, and those folks might be in a position
You know who's a huge advocate for that is like John Leguizamo.
Yeah.
John Leguizamo is always promoting Latino culture, and also like in the Hollywood scene, he's always like, why aren't we getting the major roles? Like, why aren't we getting the big roles? And it's like, when you do see the Latino community, when you think about just from like a general standpoint, who's promoting the Latino culture, and it's just the mainstream. You do look at George Lopez. You do look at like,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna lie, you just do look at him and go like, all right, let me watch the George Lopez show, and it's kind of cool because you know there's a little bit of culture somewhere in there, like the family being raised and how you're raised and those mechanisms.
Well, those are like archetypes because like being Mexican from over here is different. Mm-hmm. Like being Mexican from Saginaw is not relatable fully to George Lopez, right? I grew up in a house that didn't speak Spanish.
Oh, wow.
My mom spoke Spanish. My grandparents spoke Spanish. You know, I had grandparents that were illiterate, like, and then I'm over here becoming a poet, right? I think like it's definitely a different balance. Now, generationally, there's another migration that comes in the 90s to Detroit and Michigan. And that generation actually, you know, had a little bit more being raised in Mexico. Like my generation, we're Tejanos, right? We're raised in Mexico. I mean, raised in Texas, connected to Mexico, but we're 3-4 generations in.
Yeah.
But our experience in Saginaw was very much like Black folks and Latino folks. We built a lot together. Like we found a lot of solidarity together. And then moving to somewhere where like Chicago, where things are so structured gang wise that, I was grateful that I connected with Puerto Ricans. So they have a little bit more of a mix, but there definitely was pockets that didn't mix at all, right? Mexicans, Black folks, they didn't mix. Detroit is a little different because we're a smaller percentage of the population. We're like, Detroit's around 80% Black. And then, you have Latinos that are filling this small percentage of probably closer to like 11.
Well, nobody really talks about Southwest that much, right? Like,
it just depends. I think like I do, right? Because I'm there. So I guess in the bigger conversation, it's a different pocket. You know that like Big Meech and them are from Southwest.
Oh, they are.
Yeah, they're from Southwest.
But
Detroit.
like the music community, I don't see them being stamped like as far as like there's a Mexican artist or
I would say there's a few out that, and I think it's still like definitely open for conversation, but there definitely is a lot of really good talent in Southwest that I think right now the industry connection to it is a little bit where the work needs to be if we're trying to elevate, right? But you definitely have generations of Southwest Detroit artists that have come out, right?
Yes.
I think like for me, you have like Damasio on one end, which is like kind of like almost like a newer boom bap sound, which is really dope. And then you also have like rappers that are definitely a little bit more on the edge of the streets. Yes. But I think there is room for growth because I think the opportunity is there for people to be able to build and create that industry space for Southwest Detroit rap.
When we're talking about the culture creators and where you guys are at now and how people can get involved with you, and some of the biggest milestones for people are enticed to want to be involved with you. How can you explain all of that?
Yeah, it's pretty simple. I mean, we provide access and equity for young artists of color in the city. And that can mean, that's just like fancy words to be like, hey, we provide opportunities for mentorship, for connecting the resources. I mean, our bread and butter really is that, helping young curators understand and navigate the system of creating art and culture in the city. And I think like the easiest way to connect, obviously we're on Instagram at We Are Culture Creators, all together, spelled out We Are Culture Creators, weareculturecreators.com, which is our website. But the easiest thing is really just connect at an event, build. I mean, there's no real formal way to join Culture Creators. It's a very informal kind of structure. We have a new project coming out with MTV, Lululemon, and Pinterest,
Very cool.
which we're still getting all our things in a row for that project. But the idea is to provide like some resources and residencies for young artists that want to participate. And I think like for us, the most important thing is creating those pathways and opportunities for those artists. So like Backwoods and Bonfires is one. I think like our Cinco de Mayo festival, our Day of the Dead festival is another place because there's so many touch points to perform. Fiesta House, another series. I think if you're a DJ, we have our Audio Jack series. So I think just tapping in, connecting, and coming to events. A lot of times we host events in the summer at our actual house, which is our Culture House, which is in Southwest. And it's open invitation, right? So the easiest way is just to come and connect. And then, it's like anything. You got to find your group, because if we don't fit, there's probably 3 or 5 other groups that we can connect you with that may fit better for you. And that's what a vibrant city is, right? It's not like the competition. It's like, hey, you might fit better at Crowd Freak because you're into this type of music or art or culture, or you might fit better at Motor City Street Dance Academy, which is like one of our sister orgs. That's more about dancing and breakdancing and modern dance and like connecting them with that. So I think it's just tapping in with us and, being present in the culture of the city. Finishing up with the underground global ambassador position, for me is just to be able to highlight art, music, culture, and not only the commercial side, because that's a lot of what we get, right? We get like the normal stuff, the games, the concerts that are happening, like really visiting the communities, because the real culture of Detroit is happening in the neighborhoods. Mm-hmm. And that's what I want to highlight, right? I want to highlight the events, the activations, the things that you can't necessarily find on a website or like a Google search, but are just as important as all the things the shiny things we kind of see in the city, and highlighted.
Absolutely, because there's so much hidden talent, and it just needs to be magnified. It needs to be captured on camera and with some type of content creation, and it needs to give people hope that when I do put myself out there, it's going to result into something, and not just be, you go to an open mic or you go to a showcase and it's just like you're there and there's nothing after that. It's just nothing.
Yeah, I mean, I think like that's one of the things for us is we try to fill the room with the mixed room, right? Like the idea is if you put 100 artists together, we're all just trading art. We're just like, and that's cool. I'll trade my book for your painting. But the equity piece of like access to like who makes decisions on festivals. I mean, we have how many festivals this summer, right? And so one of our goals always is to put at least 1 or 2 of those people in the room with us, so that there is access to a conversation about movement, or, we got Afrofuture coming up. We got Backwoods and Bonfires coming up. We have all these festivals coming up in the summer. And those opportunities are important for our local talent, and not local in a negative way. I'm just saying our Detroit talent, right? Because Detroit music is international music in a sense.
Is that the main focus for you right now, is the Michigan music scene? Or are you thinking still like globally, like I need to put myself everywhere right now?
Well, I don't know. Like I think the conversation for us is that there's pockets. For instance, in Paris, right? We work with an artist. He's from the neighborhood. It's 93. 93 is like an immigrant, black kind of neighborhood, working class. He's from Martinique, but he's a fashion photographer, works for Jordan, Adidas. So he's our partner in Paris, and we connect with him, and he's really connecting us to the Paris scene, right? Now there's parallels. Like at one point I would love to be able to take a group of more established Detroit artists, right, to Paris and do a concert with their artists that are on the same level, right? I could see a Vezo over there or a T Grizzly if we could get the paperwork correct, right, and get them there. That's one aspect, but I think just being able to open the avenues, because it's not what I'm going to do. It's what those other 15 artists that we take every year, what are they going to create?
Yes.
What are they? Because they're going to build stuff I'm not imagining, right? Like, I think even for me as a Chicano, Mexicano artist that's starting to work in Mexico City, like my attitude is I know I have something to contribute. I don't know what yet. And I think that people there will help me find that and inform me. As opposed to like, yeah, of course I have my ideas and the things I want to do, but I know that as culture creators, as myself, we can contribute on the global scale of what's happening in Detroit and vice versa, because those communities are experiencing some similar things as us. And I think that there's room for our creatives, because we've already had young people tour on their own now out there in Berlin and go and spend 2 weeks by themselves, with had nothing to do with us, but they're working with other artists. And so to me, I think that's definitely always one aspect of we are culture creators, is that we want to allow young folks to actualize themselves, to have self-actualization, self-realization, and self-determination through their music. And so, yes, the international piece is just as important, but it's important in a way that a young person can see themselves traveling outside of Detroit, living outside of Detroit, while still being able to maintain their roots here. And if they want to live here, if they make that decision, that they have the ability to.
Oh yeah, for sure, man. It's the accessibility and the belief that it can happen. And because of your groundwork and what you've laid out, people know if I follow you and if I get placed by you where I fit, then there will be an opportunity in the future, which is what every artist wants to believe in. Because I've been in the music industry so long that I see artists, they get a part of a rotation or get inside of a machine, and then at the end of it, there's nothing. And it's just like, yo, I just spent all this money to exist in something, and there's nothing at the end of it.
I mean, that's the thing for me, is like, it's the same way for, let's say, even nonprofits, right? Because I've been doing that probably the longest. And I think that was like my intention of making sure young folks had something that was theirs.
Right.
Leaving with a company or a collective or a LLC or whatever it is, that there is something running parallel. Yeah. Because you do go through a system, and then let's say you do 5 years with someone, right? You start at 20, you're 25, and then you're like, okay, now what?
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? I spent all this time helping you build your thing, but I don't have anything that I can take with me because that's your thing.
They get used up.
And I think that other nonprofit workers, and that's not just that industry, it's every industry. I'm talking about companies. So I don't want to just say like nonprofits are bad. I'm saying like any institution, let's just say the word institution, that you give your energy to, and then you leave without being able to really have anything. Like, I left Chicago with a lot of skills, so I was always appreciative, but I couldn't take the nonprofit I was a part of because it wasn't mine, right? It was like a nonprofit. It was its own entity. So when I started my own work, I just wanted to make sure at a minimum that piece was there, because let's say one day we don't get along. We just are like, we don't like each other. Then you leave with nothing. Like, that doesn't make sense to me. Yeah. So I think out of the work that we do when we're curating and co-curating and co-creating with groups, we just want to make sure those young people have a foundation that's theirs, because Absolutely. I've seen it. I've seen young people flourish on their own, right? Like, one of our like most shining kind of like examples of our work is Damasio, who has Nonstop Hip Hop, and I've seen him go through 3 or 4 other collectives of work before he finally kind of got the combination right.
Right.
And now he has this really cool Cypher project, and it's making its own funds. It's doing like, it's got its own sponsorship, which is, you know, crazy to see somebody who's come through your system in a sense, and now be able to kind of learn from that. And there's 2 or 3 other people that are doing similar stuff, right? Because the sponsorship opportunities just give us as creatives money to do what's in our head. We have a vision of what we want to see, and the sponsors allow us to create that vision. And then it gives us that little bit of differential to at least make some money doing what we love to do.
Incredible stuff.
Yeah, so that's how I view it.
Incredible. What can people look forward to now if they get in contact with you? What's something we can talk about to people before we close out? Yeah,
so I mean, I know depending on the flow of when this runs, but we have Single the Mile coming up this week, so that's always one thing, but that could be every year. We have that. This summer we have a whole series of Fiesta House. We're bringing some DJs from Mexico. We're bringing 2 DJs this summer. One is called Rosa Pistola, who's amazing, at Lincoln Factory. We also have Backwards and Bonfires coming up. We have a series of the one thing that I think is the easiest in for people is we do a series called The Listening with Jack Daniels.
Oh, cool.
And that's a very simple, like, free event. We provide some refreshments, and basically 8 artists get in a room, whether it's a studio or the Culture House, and we just play 2 unreleased tracks. That's the only rule. They have to be unreleased. And The Listening is a cool project. You know, you can always DM We Are Culture Critics, say, hey, I'm really interested in doing The Listening. And it's really just for people to build, right? And we've had 6 of them. We've had 2 in Mexico. We're scheduled for 1 in Paris this summer. And The Listening is a really easy one. And then if you're a DJ, Audio Jack series is a really easy one too. So all of those little touch points, you know, if you just follow our page, We Are Culture Creators, you'll see all of that work. And if you're interested in working more on the poetry tip with me, it's just Reyes Poetry, just Reyes Poetry altogether. And I have a new project coming out, which is just like spoken word pieces that I'm trying to experiment with, like 1-minute poems that we can put out on Instagram, because every one of these things is a tool. And, you know, I haven't been able to fully maximize Instagram and some of the other social media spaces for like these 1-minute vignettes and stories. So both of those projects, We Are Culture Critters and Reyes Poetry.
Excellent, man. Like I said, this is I've worked with Crowdfreak before. I've been a part of you guys' events. I've been at Backwoods and Bonfires multiple times.
Yeah.
Super magnificent events, and I'm just glad that somebody came on here and explained the structuring behind it and the opportunity behind it, because like I said, there's so many artists that they take these risks and they don't pay out. But with you guys, I know for a fact that you're trying to help build a system and build a filtration for the end result to be an artist that has structure, foundation, and some type of opportunity that he can grow into a bigger opportunity for himself.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's awesome that you're doing this, man. I see why so many people are supportive of you and what you're doing and why you get the positions that you get. It's because you're not only just about the logistics of everything, but the passion and the creativity and the care for these artists, which is incredible, man. Thank you for bringing in the damn tequila.
Yeah, bro.
Awesome,
it's a brand new one too. So this is like a just release.
Phenomenal stuff. Phenomenal stuff.
You see, taste how smooth it is too. We
Smooth,
didn't have to cut it.
smells great. Love the bottle.
Yeah.
There's no worm.
Nah, you know what? That's the old school. Like, it's mezcal that had the worm, honestly, historically, and that was part of their marketing. So like mezcal is like a little bit smokier. It's not a tequila, so it's got a smokier undertone, right? Because it's prepared differently. But
I used to buy mezcal too, and they used to not have the worms in them. I think
because like there was somebody that told them, hey, you know, maybe you shouldn't put the worm in so you can sell more. No, it's a marketing thing for real. Yeah. So like, you know, they ended up not putting the worm in anymore because of like, you know, they're catering to like a U.S. or like Western European, like
shit,
like palate, right?
No, but this was incredible stuff. I fucking love this stuff, man.
I'm glad. Well, that's yours. So
thank you, man. I appreciate that. Appreciate you doing this. We'll get you back on again soon, man, for future events. We're at Parallel Sound Studio, High Level Visual Shootings Productions. We're out. Peace.